Last week in Michigan politics, after months of anticipation, State House Republicans passed their proposal for the annual budget. What they're proposing and what's next as a critical deadline looms. Plus, as test scores struggle to recover post-pandemic, what new scores reveal and what the state's top education official is saying is needed. And after deep congressional cuts to public broadcasting earlier this year, new legislation in Lansing to fill the gap. What's in it and how one local station leader is responding. I'm Josh Alburtus, and this is your 13 on Your Side Rundown. At the state capitol, House lawmakers voted this week to pass the Republicans' full budget proposal, totaling tens of billions of dollars. But with more than a month before the state needs to have a final budget in place, it's very different from the proposal put forward by the state Senate. House Republican leadership have said they aim to do away with billions in, quote, waste, fraud, and abuse, as well as what they call phantom employees. So what's in it? First, let's talk about the total. According to the analysis from the House Fiscal Agency, what they passed this week totaled about $54.6 billion. Combined with the analyses of the education budget bills they passed already, that would be a full budget proposal of about $79 billion from the House. That's billions of dollars less than last year and than what was proposed by Governor Whitmer this year. Some notable stuff in there, according to the analysis. Compared to this past year, this proposal would cut tens of millions from areas like corrections, the Department of State, state police, the judiciary, and the Attorney General. Hundreds of millions from places like the Department of Great Lakes Environment and Energy, and billions from Medicaid and behavioral health. In return, according to that analysis, it raises overall funding for areas like military and veterans affairs, the legislature, and the executive office, which covers the governor, the lieutenant governor, and their staff. The biggest increase, by far, it seems, would be $3.4 billion more to transportation. That's important because that's the major trade-off, it seems here. House Republicans have been talking about their ambitions to put similar funding levels toward roads for months. Now, it looks as though they're hoping to help with that along while still reducing the budget by billions, also a major messaging point. Lawmakers have a deadline of October 1st to pass one final budget into law before the state could face a shutdown. Also at the state capitol, a new bill is proposing using state funds to support local public broadcasting after funding was slashed by Congress earlier this summer. We talked with one local station and the author behind that legislation. It's a voice that helped raise generations.
Where is the basket happen? I don't know.
Elmo and the neighbors of Sesame Street on TVs across the country, teaching kids values of kindness, community, and more.
Thanks for the carrots. Nutritious and tasty, too.
The work of programs like Sesame Street and its home PBS is a passion for Jim Rademacher and his team at West Michigan's local PBS station.
For a lot of people, we're their only access to the arts. We're the classroom that never closes down. We open up the world.
It's a mission, a team, and a little red friend brought to the area by viewers like you. And the federal government.
Well, there's a lot of pressure in a lot of states.
Stations like WGVU now dealing with the coming consequences of a massive federal funding takeback after the White House argued news from networks like PBS and NPR were biased.
I think it's very unfair. It's been very biased with a whole group. A whole group of them.
The roughly $1 billion takeback this summer from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting that helps fund these stations means that the corporation will close its doors at the end of September. As they've asked the public to chip in and regain what was lost, Rademacher said WGVU has made progress.
We've raised about $400,000 of the $1.4 million that's been lost through the federal funding cuts.
But now a bill in Lansing, dubbed the Save Elmo Act, is aiming to fill the gap. $13 million state dollars in a bill introduced by State Representative Jason Morgan would be put toward funding public stations.
The idea is that stations would be able to apply for up to about what they received from the federal government to try and replace some of that revenue.
The bill would allow them to apply for grants of up to $1.5 million each. But Rademacher was hesitant to think of it as a full solution just yet.
It says up to, so is that how are those funds going to be distributed? How is it determined what each station receives?
So we asked.
Our stations would request a certain amount, up to 1.5 million, and then the department would then decide after reviewing that application if they receive that amount or some lesser amount.
The bill says stations would need to apply to the State Department of Education for the grants. And another new bill in Lansing, if passed, would force Michigan's Secretary of State to leave the post if they officially run for another office. In Michigan, the secretary is responsible for overseeing the state's election systems. Republican Jennifer Wartz introducing the bill that would mandate the secretary leave office if they file a nominating petition or fee, are nominated to or appointed to any other elected or appointed public office. It's important to note that current Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson is running for governor. Wartz specifically mentioned Benson in the reasoning behind it, arguing that there had been multiple examples during Benson's tenure that highlighted the need for an impartial Secretary of State. Complaints against Benson for using the lobby of a government building to announce her gubernatorial campaign was investigated by the state attorney general's office, and Benson was found to have violated campaign finance law as a result. But because the Secretary of State would usually be the one with the power to determine penalties, the AG's office did not. And Governor Whitmer signed legislation this past week that criminalizes the creation and distribution of deepfake pornography of specific people. The new laws, which take effect immediately, ban using AI or other digital tools to create and distribute sexually explicit content of a real person. The first offense is a misdemeanor punishable by up to 1 year in prison and or a $3,000 fine. Additional offenses are felonies punishable by up to 3 years in prison and or a $5,000 fine. All lawmakers who were present voted in favor of the bills. The state of Michigan is receiving some, but not all, of the FEMA assistance it asked for in the aftermath of the ice storm up north from late March. Now, Governor Whitmer is asking the White House for millions more in aid for northern Michigan's ice storm recovery. Late last week, President Trump approved a federal disaster declaration that authorized funding for emergency work and specific permanent repairs, but denied assistance for permanent repairs to damaged utility infrastructure and individual assistance. The governor announced she is appealing those denials, citing the impact the northern Michigan region has on the state's tourism industry. The COVID-19 pandemic walloped many areas of education proficiency around the country, including here in Michigan. And state lawmakers have sparred for years on how to address low scores. Now we have our latest data on where those scores stand. The Michigan Department of Education released their 2025 MSTEP scores Wednesday. Those showed improvement in the majority of state assessments. But despite improvement in many subjects and grade levels, 3rd and 4th grade English language arts proficiency continued to drop. The findings come from MSTEP and SAT/PSAT scores in the spring of this year. Numbers showed improvement in 14 of the 20 tests between spring of 2024 and spring of 2025. But more than half of students are not reaching proficient levels in science, math, social studies, and English language arts at most grade levels. In 2025, Michigan students saw improvement in 5 of 7 ELA assessments, 5 of 7 math assessments, 1 of 3 science assessments, and all 3 social studies assessments. Taking a look at math scores, students improved at most grade levels, but saw slight decreases in proficiency. Looking at English language arts, improvements in scores are seen across the board above grade 4, but those early grades continue to be a cause of concern as it puts Michigan in the bottom 10 states in proficiency in 4th grade. The state superintendent saying laws passed last year to address early literacy and dyslexia will help, but that more must be done to improve literacy skills of young readers. And when it comes to the state superintendent, Michigan State Board of Education selected a new superintendent to start in October. Current state superintendent Dr. Michael Rice announced his retirement in April with his last day on October 3rd. The board chose Dearborn Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Glenn Maleko to fill the position. Under his leadership, the district reached an all-time high graduation rate of 95%, and in 2019, he earned the Michigan Superintendent of the Year award. The Michigan Education Association's president and CEO shared a statement on this, saying in part, quote, "Michigan's public schools are faced with significant opportunities and challenges in the years ahead. And the new state superintendent must unite Michigan's often divided interests to pursue a shared agenda, higher standards, greater equity, and student success. The time is now to be collaborative, bold, and outcomes focused, and we believe Glenn Maleko can meet what this moment requires." Michigan Medicine, the University of Michigan's medical center, will no longer offer gender-affirming care for patients under the age of 19. On Monday, the health agency posted a letter on its website saying that decision stems from unprecedented legal and regulatory threats to clinicians and the institution. Gender-affirming care, like hormone therapy and puberty blockers, are legal in Michigan. Michigan Medicine says it will continue to care for gender-diverse patients without puberty blockers and hormones. The University of Michigan released a statement saying it recognizes the gravity and impact of the decision and will continue to support the well-being of its patients, families, and teams. All the power in the hands of just a few. That's what many seem to think as they turn to a familiar figure in hopes of a way forward. Coming up, what Senator Bernie Sanders had to say as he made his way to West Michigan. Over 7 months into the administration of President Donald Trump, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders continued his so-called Fighting Oligarchy tour in Kalamazoo this week. 13 on Your Side was there to break down the details.
I feel like I just needed hope because I feel like I've been feeling really down and really not knowing what to do.
And Saturday, Zoe Reyes came looking for hope in the area she's called home for a long time. Hope amidst what she feels is something deeply wrong in her country.
We've been in an oligarchical state for a very long time because all of the power that we've had for a very long time when it comes to money and when it comes to wealth have been in the hands of the billionaires, of the 1%.
And she's not alone. That was the case for many who came to the latest stop on Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders' Fighting Oligarchy tour.
This is a country right now for the rich and powerful, and we definitely need more support through our government for the average people in this country that we don't have right now.
Many looking for a way forward.
We need to have a message as far as, rather than just getting us all churned up and angry, what fundamentally should we be doing? That's the message I want to hear today.
Taking the stage Saturday night, Sanders aiming to speak to voters' frustration.
Republicans don't have it as they move lockstep into authoritarianism, and the Democrats don't have it because they are also controlled by big money. What we need is a vision for America that works for working people, not just the 1%.
And he did so alongside Senate candidate Abdul El-Sayed.
Too many Democrats tell you they're fighting only to show up with a strongly worded letter. We need Democrats who have the courage to stand up to the power brokers in our own party, let alone Trump and his goons.
Sanders bringing his message to an interesting backdrop. Between 2020 and 2024, when Kamala Harris and Democrats lost ground in small shifts county by county across the state, Kalamazoo County stayed almost exactly the same when it came to the share that voted for Donald Trump and the share that voted for Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. Key voters to hold on to in a key region for Democrats and allies, voters who hope to be heard. So what did people like Reyes think?
I think it makes me just want to make sure that I'm having these conversations with people within my community and following the people who are talking about it kind of on bigger stages.
Another person running for U.S. Senate here in Michigan, former Republican Congressman Mike Rogers. He released a statement in response to Sanders' event. He said in part, quote, "Socialist Sanders just reminded us all that Democrats would rather increase your taxes than your paychecks, and his record backs it. He voted to tax your tips, tax your overtime, tax your Social Security. Rogers went on to say, quote, "For working families, these tax cuts can make the difference of whether they get by through the end of the month." Michigan Democrats say tax them anyway. They've completely walked away from working families. Governor Whitmer is calling a special election to fill the 35th state Senate seat after months of pressure culminating in a lawsuit filed earlier this month. The seat, which encompasses portions of Bay, Midland, and Saginaw counties, has been vacant for around 7 months since Kristen McDonald-Rivet resigned to take her seat in Congress. Under Michigan law, it is the duty of the governor to issue writs of election in the event of a state legislative vacancy. Whitmer had the legal options to call a special election or direct the seat be filled in the next general election. In a letter to Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, Whitmer called for the special primary election on February 3rd, with the special general election on May 5th. If a Democrat were to win the election, the Senate would stand at a 20-18 split with a Democratic majority. If a Republican were to win the seat, the Senate would be evenly split 19-19, with Democratic Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist having the ability to break 19-19 ties. U.S. Representative John James is being accused of misusing congressional resources to promote his run for Michigan governor. According to a complaint addressed to the chair of the U.S. House Ethics Committee by a constituent of James' district, James allegedly appeared to misuse taxpayer resources by promoting his run for governor during a community giveaway event reportedly promoted by his congressional office. Images of the event posted on Facebook, the complaint alleges, showed a person at the event wearing a campaign T-shirt surrounded by campaign signage. The United States remains divided politically, with the two parties often locking heads and rarely finding common ground on major issues. But the Gerald R. Ford Presidential Foundation is launching a new effort it hopes will return what it describes as civility to the political process. As part of its ongoing program honoring Ford's rise to the presidency 50 years ago, the foundation is launching what it calls the Ford 50 campaign. It will add and expand civic education programs at the museum and DeVos Learning Center, targeted at school-age children, college students, and lifelong learners. The Ford family says the effort will emphasize their father's beliefs that leading a democracy requires character, commitment, and integrity.
What excites me about the Ford 50 Capital Campaign is that it amplifies the story of my father, Gerald Ford, and how his life and his legacy and his values can inspire and be appropriated by others, especially the younger generations of Americans.
The foundation says the program will make it possible for students across the state to come to the Ford Presidential Museum to learn about civics. So far, the organization has raised $10 million for the campaign, we're told, and is now starting a public fundraiser to add $2 million more. If you would like to give, we have a link on our website, 13onyourside.com. Well, hope is blooming in downtown Grand Rapids as the first of Mel Trotter's tiny homes for those facing housing insecurity and made in partnership with the state are finished. We give you a look inside the homes and lay out what's next after the break. After years of work costing millions of dollars, Mel Trotter Ministries is debuting its first tiny homes as part of its Hope Village community in Grand Rapids. 13 on Your Side's Julia Gorman has the updates on the latest effort to address the problem of homelessness and the housing shortage in Grand Rapids.
After more than 3 years of work, the first tiny home inside Mel Trotter's Hope Village is ready for someone to call it home.
Having a place of your own is the centerpiece of the American dream. And unfortunately, that dream is out of reach for too many families in our country.
Hope Village will eventually offer 16 tiny homes on Garden Avenue Southeast in Grand Rapids. Mel Trotter CEO Chris Pulaski explains it's a small step in tackling our local homelessness problem.
There's not enough homes on the market for people to move into if they do come into homelessness. So places like this are extremely important for individuals, for families, especially people who are just going through a speed bump in their lives.
An approach Grand Rapids City Manager Mark Washington says,
we're prepared to replicate this and expand efforts like this across our city.
The tiny homes are between 400 and 530 square feet. The first one offering full-size kitchen appliances and washer and dryer.
So you'll have some at market rates, you'll have some that are subsidized. So we're not just throwing people into homes saying you've got a free home, but we want people to have skin in the game too. And they should put in a percentage of what they're making, but it should be affordable too.
And more affordable housing is coming to Grand Rapids. The Michigan Strategic Fund is providing a $4 million grant to support a new 171-unit apartment building on Leonard Street near Lafayette. The Grand Rapids City Commission approved rezoning for the project in 2024. The 5-story mixed-use building will have studio apartments, 1- and 2-bedroom apartments as well. It will also have the retail space and underground parking. The project will receive nearly $5 million combined from a neighborhood enterprise zone and the State Housing Authority. Grand Rapids is another step closer to using drones to study parking in the city. This week, the city's fiscal committee recommended approving up to $30,000 for the study. Mobile GR will partner with OHM, the project's primary consultant, to collect the data. City leaders say no personally identifying information will be collected, which was a concern when the proposal was first announced. Following approval from the city government late last month, demolition is underway at Muskegon General Hospital for apartments. It closed in 2020 as part of the plan to consolidate services into the new Mercy Hospital. At its July 22nd meeting, the City Commission approved a commercial rehabilitation district for the site on Oak Avenue. Once the current building is demolished, the plan calls for the development of 6 3-story multifamily buildings over 3 years. Dredging of the Grand Haven Inner Harbor is set to begin soon, following the awarding of a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers contract after months of delays. West Michigan Congresswoman Hillary Skolton said the delay stemmed from new sediment testing requirements from the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, or EGLE. Skolton said she advocated for the project to move forward since January and warned that the region's economy could be hurt if the dredging isn't completed this year. She said the harbor supports over 450 jobs and generates nearly $90 million in annual regional economic impact. The dredging of the harbor is slated to begin this fall, but no exact date was given. Did you know the first nuclear plant in U.S. history to be recommissioned is right here in West Michigan? Well, if not, that's because it hadn't ever happened until now. The major update on that Lakeshore plant and what's still to come, that's next. The Palisades Power Plant is now the first nuclear plant in U.S. history to be recommissioned. The owner, Holtec, announced Tuesday the plant is now officially declared operational. The new status does not mean it's now running, but it can now receive nuclear fuel. Crews still need to finish inspections, testing, and repairs before restarting. Holtec says Palisades will produce enough electricity to power more than 800,000 homes and businesses once it returns to service. And that's the rundown for your week in Michigan politics. Be sure to keep up with all the top political stories of the day, both on air and online at 13onyourside.com.